Next up is Dr. Erika Appelzweig. She tells us that her favorite authors say to write every day and write what you know. So she decided to follow this advice and write what she knows every day for months. And then she had to piece it together and condense many pages of scintillating stuff into a short reading. So much for good advice. Tonight, Erika is going to read excerpts from her memoir, In Progress. When you listen to her piece, she said, you'll understand. Please welcome Erika. I'm going to curse, so guard your ears. Harvesting wisdom. How to cull what is useful from the useless chaff. What can I harvest at my age in the dead of winter? I had to think about that. Then I remembered what I've told my patients all these years. Don't just live, live and learn. Getting old sucks.
Yep.
There is little to recommend it except for the wisdom you accrue during a long life. So I ask myself, do I evidence a kind of wisdom befitting my age? And if I am wise, is it possible I'll never have to feel obsolete because I can still be a special and useful asset to others? Here are 2 important points. First, times change, and much of my wisdom may be outdated and irrelevant to younger folks. And second, if it will enable me to survive and live creatively and productively, that's useful, isn't it? So here are some stories about the wisdom that I've harvested over my many years, which I may or may not have been able to put to good use. Weaponizing chatter. My father's friend, Teddy Shaglovsky, a chess master, taught me to play chess when I was 8 years old. I always won with my secret weapon, talking men to death without them knowing what hit them. The problem with utilizing high-pitched little girl chatter as a weapon to beat old men at chess is that once the word gets around, no one will play chess with you. Dealing with loss. Gert, my father's oldest cousin, was like a grandmother to me. She was sweet, kind, and a great listener. She told everyone she was a chocoholic, so I always brought her favorites, Ritter Sport rum and Moncherie, whenever I visited from Germany. Both of these were filled with alcohol, and Gert was so tiny that she'd hit both sides of the door frame after eating only 2 pieces. The meanest snake in my family, my father's 4th wife, we'll call Lenore the whore, started a rumor that I killed Gert with broccoli. How ridiculous is that? I loved her dearly. Her passing at 92 gave rise to an enduring fantasy that has helped me cope with the loss of all the people I've loved. I plan to have a picnic in the Elysian fields in heaven with Chinese takeout food, so no one has to cook. I'll only invite those who were very kind to me, and we'll all be young and healthy again, and full of piss and vinegar, and no one will choke to death. Never again. One time I sent a package of my hair color from New York to my friseur in Degerloch, and DHL delivered it to the Zollamt, so I had to get a signed power of attorney from my friseur to go and pick it up. They didn't even make me open it, but just trusted me to tell them what was in it. You mean I'm too old to be a terrorist or a drug dealer? I said, disappointed. Genau, they said. Contributing to the German language. Another day, I contributed a new word to the German language. When a young man almost hit me driving out of a driveway on his Vespa, I yelled, Scheißkopf! This caused him to recoil visibly and look very confused. I went home and told my husband what happened. "We don't have that word in our language," my husband said. "You do now," I said. That reminds me of a time a few years ago when a big black SUV in New York almost ran me over at dusk, speeding through a stop sign with its lights off and braking suddenly only a few inches in front of me. Startled, I yelled, "Jesus fucking Christ!" I only said that once before, and this is only the second time. This caught the attention of a group of Orthodox Jewish men standing in front of their temple 20 feet from me. I'd been carrying a big bag of groceries, and as I swerved out of the way, a dozen eggs and several other items, including a package of bacon, fell out of the bag and smashed onto the street. As the Hasidim kept their eyes on me, I remembered the lady on line behind me at the Key Food Market who, seeing I had bacon on the conveyor belt, tapped me on the shoulder and exclaimed in thick New Yorkese, "That's a real no-no, isn't it?" Was my near brush with death only 20 minutes later the result of some higher power sending me a strong message of disapproval? When I was in New York last October, I made a big mistake when I ate a $5 Sabret hot dog from a street vendor a half hour after I'd had a senior flu shot and an Omicron shot in the same arm. I felt fine and was headed downtown to meet friends visiting us from Tucson to take them on the Circle Line cruise that goes all around Manhattan. I was hungry, and as I passed a stand on the corner, I noticed that wonderful smell of eau de Sabret hot dog that I recalled from my childhood, when they'd only cost 15 cents. So for sentimental reasons, I grabbed one with sauerkraut, onions, and ketchup, I hate mustard, and scarfed it down. That hot dog triggered 2 hours of a stomachache, dizziness, and blindness on the Circle Line boat ride. I still don't believe it was the vaccines. I think it must have been the allowable amount of rodent poop in the hot dog, which, by the way, was not kosher. Never again. Speaking of sauerkraut, here in Stuttgart many years ago, after I broke my knee skiing, I had to travel downtown on crutches for physical therapy and then back home several times a week. Some days, worn out from a long session, I would hobble out of therapy and get takeout at the Imbus downstairs. Because of the crutches, I had to carry food in a bag around my neck. One day I stood behind a lady who ordered a Gurkele mit Schupfnudeln zu mitnehmen. I spoke very little German back then, but always embraced the opportunity to learn how to pronounce new food items. So following her lead, I stepped forward and ordered a Gurkele mit Schupfnudeln to go. I had no idea what Schupfnudeln was, but I figured I'd find out when I got home. So I paid and placed the food in the bag around my neck, and I headed for the U-Bahn. When it came, I found a seat for old or disabled people. Things were normal until a woman got on the train with a very large German Shepherd. She had her back to me and was talking animatedly to friends who were seated across the aisle. She held the leash behind her, so the dog was facing me at eye level, and she was unaware of anything the dog was doing. The dog was quite close to me and immediately smelled the chicken. He lunged forward, and I was ready to hold one crutch up horizontally to block him, but just as quickly he jumped backward. He continued to lunge forward and jerk backward like that several times, reminding me of a vampire repelled by garlic. I guess that this vampire dog was attracted to my chicken, but quite repelled by the Schupfnudeln. It had to be the smelly main ingredient in it, the sauerkraut. Now I realized this lesson I learned could be useless. First of all, I only know about this one German Shepherd, and I don't pretend to know what other dogs it might be useful for. And second, if people are afraid of German Shepherds and they encounter an aggressive one, where could they find sauerkraut in a hurry to throw at it? I imagine they'd have to carry some around all the time to be prepared to defend themselves. This sounds highly impractical, since chances are very slim that they'll never even need to use it. And it's also possible they won't have a lot of friends, because they will permanently smell of sauerkraut. As I get older, I realize how dumb I was when I was young. For instance, I never knew who would later become famous. In 1965, I walked all over London carrying the neck of a guitar that Peter Townsend of The Who had destroyed, and eventually I got tired of carrying it and threw it in the garbage can. And then there was a time when I was 14 and Bob Dylan was 19, and late at night, after the Basket House coffee shops on McDougal Street closed, we'd go to his apartment and write songs. He'd write at his kitchen table, and I'd write on his living room couch. And in the morning, we'd play our songs for each other. I always admired his talent and was flattered that he liked my songs. But after months of this, when he started to drink a lot, I got bored and stopped hanging out with him. Isn't it still my time? When he was little, my nephew Jonah once asked me, in your time, did a lot of musicians live in lofts in New York City? In my time? Holy crap. Until he asked, I thought it was still my time. That really threw me. I took a moment to regain my composure and answered, oh no, honey, in my time we lived in caves. Today I am the elderly, and I hate to tell you, but I'm still trying to figure out some of the basics. When did I get old? Was it when my spine started compressing and I got shorter and lost my stature? When did I become so much less noticeable to younger people that they run right into me and keep dancing on, and I am reduced to the significance of a speed bump? On some days I panic when I run out of blueberries, because during the pandemic, I became certain that eating a handful every day was the only thing that kept me from catching COVID. I was obsessed, and still am, with strengthening my immune system by bombing the enemy with a steady stream of antioxidants. I also eat a lot of mangoes, because I love the sound of the word, mangoes! Yeah. There's another word I'm still figuring out. Retire. This word does not excite me. When friends ask my husband how long I plan to keep working, he says, until she dies, and probably even after that. The word retire just doesn't make any sense to me. I think they should just call it tire out, because you get tireder and tireder until you just tire out. There are times when I'm stressed that my mind jumps the track of my and my writing reveals more non sequiturs and train wrecks than they have in India. But my trains are packed with word passengers, sitting on top of the cars with bulging suitcases on a journey full of memories and parentheses. Then crash! The suitcases tumble off and burst open, and the stuff in my head flies all over the place. My CPU is full. And when anything new wants to come in, something old has to leave. And I don't get to choose what it is. I'm always losing things or leaving them where they don't belong. Eyeglasses in the bathtub, meatballs in the bread box, a shot glass of vitamins impulsively dumped into my iced tea, my cell phone hidden under a newspaper. How can you call up a lost can of goulash soup? It's often said as we grow older, we become more who we've always been. speaking for myself, I've always been an emotional person, and these days, the world being what it is, there are times I am an omelet of emotions. And I have to seek solitude to compose myself and find peace. But I'll always come back again to reconnect with the world because of these important things I've learned from living. That I can continue to harvest new wisdom from my experience every day I'm alive. That life is often very funny, and I'll always find humor in it. And above all, that I must never grow too old myself. Thank you.